This is Ron Hull with the MC Sailing Association, and this evening is our first Skype sailor interview with Natalie Sinn, boat 2040 out of Minnetonka and Lake Harriet. Is that right? Your club?
Yep, I've sailed out of Harriet, but now I'm sailing out of Minnetonka.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. She was also a collegiate sailor at Minnesota, and she got into the MC class in around 2012, sailing at the inlands. Natalie, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for joining us here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I guess we'll just jump right into the questions here. Natalie, when did you start sailing?
I didn't step foot on a sailboat until the spring of my junior year of high school.
Okay.
I found out through some friends that my brother knew actually that there even was a sailing team, and that group of guys was trying to get me to come out and come to practice. And eventually I decided to go, and I was hooked right away, and I ended up going like every single day after school, and then I joined the summer race team, and it just kind of spiraled from there.
What boats were those?
That was the 420.
The 420s? Okay.
Yep.
What do you love about sailing? Or do you love sailing, right?
I love sailing, and I was thinking about, is there even one thing I don't love? No. I go through this list in my head about all the great things about sailing. I mean, you get to be outdoors. You get to be on the water.
Right.
Most of the time, it's pretty good weather. I mean, especially with, like, we mostly sail in the summer, so it's not too bad. I mean, you can be competitive, but you don't have to be competitive if you don't want to. I mean, sailing can be for anyone.
Right.
I just love the team aspect of it too, especially with the boats we sail, and really the fact that there are so many different boats you can choose to sail. So there's always a different challenge that you can take up if you'd like, and so it always keeps it new and interesting. And every time you go out on the water, really the weather is never exactly the same. So I feel like it keeps it interesting every time you're out there. So I never get bored.
That's awesome. What have you enjoyed, I guess, about the MC class? Stepping in the MC class, right after college, you've done pretty well. The last few years, 26th overall in inlands with a 5th in the last race in 2016, 2017, 10th overall at inlands, 12th overall at Die Hard, and moving up into 2018, 11th overall with a third in one of the races there, and then a 4th in the national championship in one of the races. 35th overall. We don't like to talk about that last race, but
So,
but you've been making some strides here, and what have you been enjoying about the MC class, and why are you sticking with it?
oh man, well, I guess I first sailed the MC right out of college. We were able to get a boat from a friend in White Bear to sail that first inland, and I mean, college sailing was a huge part of my life for 4 years, and I knew I didn't want to give that up at all. And I was like, okay, what can I do out of college? And the MC just made a whole lot of sense. For me, it was kind of an easier, smoother transition. I do remember my very first race at that inland in 2012. Paige, who co-owns the boat with me, Paige and I were sailing, and we rounded that first windward mark in last. And I was like, uh-oh, this is how this event's going to go. But we did not let that get us down at all. And actually, I think we finished that event in like 13th overall.
Oh, wow.
So it was kind of like an ongoing joke for the longest time that the best I'd ever done at inland was my very first time sailing until more recently. So really, it's just, I love that you can put in the time and you put in the work and you get out there and you sail as much as possible at as many events as possible with the best sailors you can surround yourself with, and eventually that starts to pay off, and you start to get better and you see results from the work you've put in over the years. So
Yeah,
I love about the MC, really.
Yeah. I mean, I feel the same way about that class, about the class, obviously, but and I've been there too with, rounding that first upwind mark and last, and like, all right, this is the bar.
Exactly.
Any experiences you'd like to highlight with the MC class? People that you've met or anything like that?
I've only had positive experiences. I mentioned back, like, when I first was getting into the MC, it was fellow MC sailors that would let me borrow their boat for different events, whether it was taking it to a regatta. I mean, these are people that barely knew me, or like somebody I knew vouched for me, and they were like, "Oh yeah." I mean, everybody was so willing to grow the fleet and get somebody new interested in sailing, which I thought was so amazing because I did that for years. I was chartering boats and just sailing when somebody couldn't use their boat, and eventually was able to get my own with Paige. But I mean, every single person I've ever met has been going out of their way to make sure that you are coming to events, that you have a boat to sail, that you have a crew if it's going to be windy. I mean, you name it. You in particular have helped me out in that way. And a lot of other people, whether it was Lake Harriet, people from White Bear, Ryan's parents over in Nagawicca have let me use their boats multiple times.
Right.
So, I mean, it's not just like the local sailors that are sharing for Minnetonka where I know most people. It's everywhere. It's the whole class.
Yeah. I've had the same experiences. I mean, just jumping in, and people helping you out, whether it's putting your mast up or holding your tongue down. Well,
Yeah.
you're putting your mast up, people want to help out. And I think that's really neat. And I love how it kind of jumps, from the older guys to the newer sailors to, kind of across the class.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Ryan Grosh, a fellow MC sailor, I need help to get my boat out of the water for an event, and he'll volunteer to meet me at Minnetonka after work and come get my boat put on a trailer.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's so nice. And then I go to events and there are guys in the parking lot putting their rigs up, and they're more than happy to walk over and help me with that too. And
yeah,
I don't know, around a windward mark and you're having a good race and the people next to you are like, "Hey, like, great job." Like, they're excited for
yeah.
you. Which I love, like, that. Obviously it's competition. But you're wishing the best for your competitors too, which I think is really cool.
Absolutely. What are your goals in your sailing career?
I think my only really specific goal is to be more consistent in my sailing overall. I feel like, and everybody has ups and downs with their results at events, but that's my one big goal, is that I'd like to be more consistent, and not have to count on a throughout race at a regatta. Because it happens, and of course, sometimes it's out of your control, but other times it's like you're like, what was I doing? So I want to be more consistent, and just in general, I really want to be a role model to other sailors, whether it's people my own age, older, specifically youth sailors. I spend a lot of time coaching young kids up to high school teams as well, and I want to be somebody that other sailors can look up to, and just be a role model in that way.
That's awesome. Well, I think you've got a head start on that. You definitely have. You're definitely a great role model for younger sailors, for sure.
Well, thank you. I hope so.
How do you prepare for regattas?
Oh man, regatta prep starts way in advance. Like, for me, I am requesting those days off like 9 months in advance. I get that on the calendar the day I know that it's happening, because I want to prioritize all the major events, and even more local ones too. But I put them all on my calendar right away. And then when it comes closer to the event, it's really a lot of logistics. So at least at Minnetonka, our boat is out on an island. And so figuring out how are we going to get out to the boat and then go bring it to the crane. A lot of planning goes into it. I mean, I have to borrow a car to tow because I don't have a car that can tow. And so Paige and I are usually talking about this weeks in advance to figure out what the plan is and whose whaler are we going to borrow to tow the boat. And then really once it comes to actually leaving for the event, I make sure that I have printed the NOR and the SI. I love to get all of that read and make sure it's with me just in case. I figure out my housing situation, and sometimes you're bringing your own meals so that by the time I'm actually arriving at the event, I only have to focus really on getting my boat in the water and then sailing, and everything else is just kind of taken care of. Because when you go to an event, you don't want to be figuring out that you need a place to stay when you arrive.
Yeah.
It's just a layer of stress. So that's kind of my overall regatta prep.
Do you find it a little bit difficult since, you're a young professional and, getting time off and making that investment? I mean, you have to make decisions. Do you go on the ski vacation or do you go to regattas? How do you balance that in your life?
Yeah, it is hard. And I started a new job just 2 months ago. And so that was one of my big anxieties was, oh my gosh, am I going to accrue enough time to take off a full week for inland and, Fridays here and there for other events. And but I sit down and I prioritize sailing in the summer because I don't have a whole lot of other things going on. And I make sure that I count how fast I will accrue those days. And I actually look and I make sure that I've got the time. Thankfully, I haven't really had to have the decision to go to something or not. I've always had just enough time to get where I need to go. And so I'm planning the same thing for this summer. I'm going to be at every event. And I'm actually hoping inland isn't a whole week.
Yeah.
I'm hoping a longer weekend, but we'll see. I'll make it work either way. And I just, like I said, I like to prepare in advance. So like I'll bring it up to my boss months and months in advance. And they're usually way more understanding if you need to take time unpaid if you don't have the time.
Right.
They're like, oh yeah, I mean, it is 9 months from now. Okay, we can work with that.
It's hard to say no like 9 months ahead,
That's right. The preparation.
That's awesome. That's so great. All right, so you're on the water, right? And we got 100 boats out there. You've done a little practicing here and there. It's 10 minutes to start. What does that look like for you? What's going through your mind? Do you have any jitters? What you got? Adrenaline pumping? What's it look like?
Yeah. Well, I mean, of course, you've got some jitters, but I try not to psych myself out. I try to make sure that by 10 minutes to the start, I'm confident and I'm comfortable. I'm warmed up in the boat. And then it's really just making sure that I'm sailing that line a couple more times to make sure that I know exactly where I want to be starting, or at least which side of the course I'd like to be at.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to kind of jump out there and just like start wherever you find a hole. And sometimes that works, but it's a little bit more relaxing if you go out there with a plan and a schedule of kind of how you want to run your time up to the start. So at least 10 minutes before the start, I'm more focusing on like, what's my tactic for that first beat? Where do I want to be?
Who's your marshmallow?
I've never heard that term until you told me that term. And I honestly, I don't think I've ever thought of someone as a marshmallow. I can say that. I haven't. Cause I feel like I've been the marshmallow.
Oh, I'm constantly the marshmallow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking for a hole. It's usually not next to the same person every time.
Right.
But yeah, so that's kind of what it might look like for me.
That's great. All right, we're going to do a little rapid fire. All right. Some questions here. Just 5 questions.
All right.
Rapid fire. Tacos or burritos?
Burrito.
Okay, dog or cat?
Dogs.
Packers or Bears?
Oh, Bears. I hate the Packers. I know a lot of people from Wisconsin are sailing.
I know. I was
race.
trying to trip you up with that one. All right. Jimmy Spithill is on port, right? And it's close. Do you make him tack or do you let him pass?
He crosses.
He crosses? All right.
I feel you pay it forward. You know, like you let him cross. Maybe you have a close call later and it evens out.
Yeah. What about Ryan Grosh though? You make him tack, right?
Ooh. I feel like I've probably had the situation. I'm usually just like, just go. I respect that guy so much.
I know, me too. I love that guy. He's great. Great. All right. You can only choose one. This is the last one. You can only choose one. Visor or sunglasses?
Oh, I would say visor these days, mostly because I used to never wear a visor. I just wore sunglasses, but spending a whole day out on the lake with sun on your face, your whole face in general, is way harder. So you need the shade.
All right.
Their shade.
That's great.
You'll see me wearing both though.
I know. Yeah. It seems like I've only seen you with the visor and sunglasses, so that's why I was kind of wondering if you had to make a choice.
And visor is key because then the bun can stick up the top.
Oh, okay.
And then I get the sun.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah. I'm starting to go to those those really thin shirts with the hoods now.
Oh.
To keep the sun off like my neck and stuff. I don't know. And I don't have a bun to worry about, so that's kind of.
Yeah. Well, you could always grow one.
I could. That's a good idea. What's your most memorable MC race? I kind of highlighted a couple of them earlier, but what's your most memorable one?
Well, probably not ones you'd think of. I'd love to say one of my favorite moments was Nationals this last year, rounding right behind Ryan. I think we were 1-2 at the Windward. And I loved that mostly because Ryan and I sail seaboats together, and I've known him since college. And when it was just us two up at the top right there, it was just such a good feeling. And of course, like when it's somebody that you sail with and that you race against all the time, and I rarely beat him. It's just fun to be up there. But I would have to say, like, my most memorable race in general was probably, I think it was Inland 2015 at Geneva. And Paige and I had borrowed an old MC, very old MC. It was like 1392 or something.
Yes.
It was mom's boat at the time, and we were just excited to be there. I was like, great, we have a boat. Like, we almost didn't go out sailing because it was blowing like 20 and we didn't want to break anything, but we went for it, and the boat was just swamping with these waves. And
I turtled my boat during that regatta.
You did. We stayed upright, but we have the best GoPro video. I mean, it is the funniest thing you've ever seen.
Really?
Yeah. I'll have to share it with you sometime.
Absolutely. We'd love to see it.
Yeah, just we're taking on water. There are no auto bailers. And so we're prepared, though. We came with a real bailer, like that detergent tub that you used in college. And on the downwind, we both had to like physically like reach into the boat and hold these bailers down with our hands while bailing and steering and it was just ripping. And in this video, we're both laughing so hard, like I almost lost control of the boat just from laughing. And it's just one of those races that you think back on and like you're like, okay, we probably did not do very well in that race, but we were just having a blast and so glad we stayed upright. We finished, and it's those days that you really are like, this isn't just like competitive sailing. We've got to beat everyone, do the best we can. It's about being out there with your friends and having a good time, and sometimes you just have to roll with what you're given.
That's so awesome. Well, thank you so much, Natalie, for joining us this evening, and I'm sure our viewers are going to love this interview and love meeting you, and we really appreciate you being in the class and sailing. And if you guys see 2040 out there, make sure you Yeah, watch out. Make sure you cheer on. Deadly Sin is the boat. Hashtag Deadly Sin 2Ns.
Yes.
But thank you very much, Natalie. I really appreciate it.
You're so welcome, and hope to see everybody out on the water.
Absolutely. Thank you.